today to talk about something that I do a lot, sharing. And what does sharing mean, right? Sharing is when you're excited about something, a concept, a project, an idea, and you want to get it out there. You want to have it be alive. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today, and how my view of sharing and how that's a feedback process has evolved through a series of projects. So I've been reading Mastery by Robert Greene, and something that he talks about is this primal inclination. And so for me, at a very young age, I was sharing a lot. And it's something where it's really about that spark, something that's so exciting, so interesting that you have to talk about it. So for me, it was a trip that my dad took me on when I was 7 to see the white tigers in Cincinnati Zoo. Now, what could be cooler to a 7-year-old than white tigers? Tigers, that's one thing. But white tigers, I mean, that's something you really have to talk about, right? You have to share that. And so I told all of my friends, because come on, it's white tigers, right? I mean, that's a big, big deal. And so something my dad would ask is, are you broadcasting, right? And it was really funny because, back then in 1996, we didn't have social media, we didn't really have the internet. And so it's funny because I was simply told all of my friends. So I was a word-of-mouth marketer at that age. And it's funny because it's something that really happened naturally. And now here, in the 2000s, we have the ability to really broadcast, to really share out. And a lot of us do that. So I'm going to talk about really how do we evolve our view of how sharing can be a process that's really two-way. So this is, it's so amazing. Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest inventors of the 20th century, had such foresight. He talked about how the world would be connected by wireless and would turn into this idea of a huge brain, which I think is interesting, right? It sounds very weird, it's very strange. But in reality, what he's talking about is how each person is fulfilling a different avenue. How they're really creating or contributing to a different type of project or someone's idea. Akin to putting something on Facebook and having a friend commenting about it. For instance, recently I said, you know what, I'm going to get my pilot's license. I was so excited about it. And I said, you know what, I'm going to put this on Facebook. If I put it on Facebook, I have to commit to it. I have to really do it. And so instantly, I'm getting 20, 30 likes. And that's a huge deal for me because I don't have a lot of friends on Facebook. Right? But anyway, so the deal is, So it's funny because for me it was a commitment to do it. And interestingly enough, that's a way to share through. So one of my friends who's actually in this audience, I had no idea, I've known him for years, and I had no idea that 5 years ago, before attending MIT, he actually also got his pilot's license. So we can go flying together, we can do things like that. So that's kind of one of your first elements of sharing, is really understanding that there are other people out there like you, and the people that are not can also contribute. So there's really this two-way map we're looking at. However, a lot of people think that sharing is dangerous, right? How many times have we heard, someone's going to steal my idea, right? I can't, I'm in stealth mode. And I think that's okay, right? I'm not here to belittle or bemoan that. I think certain ideas do need strong intellectual property protection. You do need NDAs for certain things. But I have been amazed over the past several years, really the past 7 years, doing projects to realize just how little this actually applies. However, it comes with the immediate caveat that you have to be in an atmosphere of trust. Right? If you're not, on the one hand, yes, there is the very real concept of, oh, is my idea going to get taken? Right? Is this going to be a remake of the movie The Social Network? But what we're really talking about here, I'm not talking about the other people. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you feeling comfortable sharing, because only then will you truly be able to open up. You'll truly be able to say, hey, this is my idea, this is interesting. And then other people will respond in kind. We're going to talk a little bit about that conversational dance here in a little. So one of the things that I really want to emphasize is that the risks, and there certainly are risks, are trumped by the positives. So I studied product design at MIT. And it's something that's interested me for a long time, viral consumer products. And what they talk about is a design process, right? And so it's so interesting because they talk about the idea of multiple phases of design, and that you should go through those with feedback. Now, the sharing concept that I'm going to share here today is very similar to that. For those of you that are really into entrepreneurship and have read Eric Ries's The Lean Startup, this will also ring some bells, but it's not quite the same. This is more about sharing, and it doesn't have to be a startup. It could be a project, an idea, a nonprofit, something you're trying to build, something you're trying to create, a book club you're trying to start, all of the above. What I want to emphasize here is that the conversation itself is very, very important. And I don't think, honestly, I don't think there are a lot of books out there specifically on these types of conversations. I know Fierce Conversations is one. Dale Carnegie, of course, is a classic. And what I want to emphasize here is that like any good dance or any interplay between people, you are putting out some creative energy, right? You're going to give to the relationship. And it may not be first. But what tends to happen is this wonderful arc. You start off with something kind of personal, people often call it small talk, right? And then at some point the conversation translates and transitions into this wonderful kind of, okay, I'm going to put myself out there now. This is the business concept, this is the project, this is my dance class I'm trying to do. And what's interesting, and I have found 95% of the time, people respond in kind. The world is a mirror. And so they'll respond back. And there's this beautiful, elegant kind of exchanging of ideas. And you can build a sense of agreement and concurrence around several key concepts throughout a conversation. And by the end, the goal, the expressed goal, is to get to a point that's really full circle, which is small talk, right? You want them to tell you about their grandmother, about how they baked some brownies last week, or how, school's tough. And the reason you want them to tell you about those things, ironically, of course, that has nothing to do with your project, but it has everything to do with your project, because it means that they've let their guard down. They've said, you know what, all these walls that I put up, they're gone, and I'm going to tell you what I really think. They're going to do this kind of like, hey, I'm going to tell this to a lot of people, but your project, this concept is real amazing, and this sucks. And you want to hear that so you can filter that. So you can really go through the process. So I'm going to show you a project here. This is an alpha prototype. So again, for those of you not in the product world or whatever, the alpha prototype is the first thing that you make. So this concept, I did it in sophomore year. Okay, it was very early 2009 here at MIT. And the basic concept was this, right? I had a career-focused program that I was a part of, and there were business cards that Vistaprint gave to everyone. Now, they all looked the same, and so simply, all I wanted was something that looked novel, something that looked interesting. And so I went down to the laser cutter in the basement of MIT's Media Lab, and I found some fluorescent acrylic. If you shine a black light, this stuff gets really crazy, okay? And so I made some 8-inch thick cards. Now, for those of you that are not educated in the world of business cards, it's a very deep, deep world. Business cards are 0.012 rather, inches thick, 12 thousandths, or in mechanical engineering speak, 12 thou. Now, an eighth of an inch is 10 times that. Right? So imagine a stack of 10 business cards. Now give that to someone. Be like, this is my business card. Forget about the other 10. We don't need those. And that's kind of a joke, too, because people have these business card holders. Right? And I was like, no, mine's more important. It's okay, you can put mine in there. And beyond egotism, what I was able to realize is that I had captured something. Right? Some people were talking about it, but clearly there were flaws, right? You don't actually want them to take other people's business cards out of their wallets. And so I started talking to people and understanding kind of what their issues were, and I started pitching it hundreds and hundreds of times, and I came back to a beta prototype, right? And I actually sold this. So I sold $800 worth of these cards, and what's different about this? Well, this is only 3 business cards thick, okay? And by that point, I kind of thought I was good on the thickness thing, right? In addition, some of the scratching that I had earlier, as you can see, if you look closely, this gets really, really scratched up easily, as plexiglass or acrylic does. This is scratch resistant, which was great. Okay, so I'm starting to solve some of the issues. I'm starting to get back and forth. And all of this is sharing. I would carry these cards through MIT, and I'd have made a new batch in the product design lab and kind of walk around and be like, hey, so-and-so, you want to see something cool? And it's funny because you heard me, I'm almost slurring my words because I'm so excited about it that I take it out, I talk to them about it, or I show them a picture of it on my phone, and they start to give me their ideas. And I found a wondrous serendipity happening in these 5-minute conversations. Really, really interesting. And so going from there, I was able to emphasize my interest in lasers when I worked at Apple. And ironically, when I went out there and started working on lasers, one of the guys said, hey, do you want a metal business card? I said, that would be pretty slick. That'd be really cool. And so he gave me one. And I was able to take that idea and change it a little bit, again, according to the tools, according to the processes that I had. So this is a laser-etched aluminum anodized business card. That's really cool, and so it's 30% thicker than a regular business card, so we're doing all right. This is really, really neat. So what I want to really emphasize here is that there's a method to this. It's not something that, though very organic, it's not something that can't be broken down into a process. And so I'm going to share kind of what I've analyzed my own process to be in hopes that you can take some things from that and really, say, hey, this works for me and this doesn't. So this is my beautiful little pictographic here. And we're going to go through this. Sorry, this is the busiest slide of all, so I'm just going to walk through this real quick. You start with a spark, an idea. Okay? And people have a lot of ideas. You start out with an idea notebook or whatever, and then you start sharing it with some people. And it's important to see the quantity of people in each area. And so you start sharing it. Now, if that idea doesn't make sense, or if it doesn't have the novelty you like, if it's not the correct dance class or the correct type of dance, you're going to go back to the drawing board. Right? But it's important that you keep doing this process. Now, in Seth Godin's The Dip, he talks about true innovation and true impact being from a long slog. Okay? And so I've heard a lot of people talk about the entrepreneurship world and say, so-and-so just had a great idea. And perhaps they did. They probably did, to some extent. Unless they were iRobot and wanted to go to the moon and stake a claim out and do things like that. They now make the Roomba. But my point here is that this is a full-on process. You've got to go through it. So just to walk through the rest, you really have to figure out how to do these. Now, I'm not going to go into the exact process of how to do them, but I want to point out the number of people you talk to. So you make a prototype, right? You've got a creator rendition, and at any time you can roll back, you tell, okay, a few more people. And it's really important to share that in something physical or something real, if it's a service or a concept, or if it's a website, even a screenshot of a landing page. You make something and you make it real. Now, one of the more important parts here is how few people you see me saying ask questions to, right? And what I want to emphasize here is that at this point, you should know enough to know ideally kind of who likes this, who thinks this is interesting from an investment perspective, from a customer perspective to speak in the world of startups, or from someone who just potentially might be involved, right? And so you're going to talk to them. I want you to talk to people who know a lot and be able to screen that, right? Be able to kind of learn more and say, well, I'm going to take this, I'm going to leave this on the table, as well as, very importantly, specific customers and test users. And it brings me to my last point, which is you actually have to test it then. And this is one of the scariest parts, because it involves truly putting yourself out there. Now you see, I've put 20 or so, 15 or so little colored men up there. And the reason that I put so many little guys up there is because you truly have to put it out there. This is one of the biggest fears with the startup that I'm going to talk about next, high-tech dress shirts. We had this shirt concept, and we're going, oh my God, we're going to put this on the internet. What if people don't buy it? What if people buy it and it doesn't make sense? But you really have to do that, and beyond that, you refine and start again. So I think this process can be really helpful. It can be really interesting. So to close out with one really prime example here, talking about this high-tech dress shirt. What we did a couple years ago, a friend came to me and said, you know what, I've been working on outdoor wear. I've been really using novel fabrics to create outdoor wear, and Columbia keeps taking me over. And who likes that, right? Who likes an industry that's so fiercely competitive that it's really aggressively taking on concepts? That way, when you're trying to innovate from an early stage, he said, you know what? A friend came to me and had this issue with his business apparel, right? He'd get hot on the T here in Boston, and he wants something that's more moisture-wicking, more dry fit, so to speak. And so one of the things that we did when we had made the shirts, but before selling them, we said, does my shirt look different? We went to a yuppie event here in Boston, which is what was it? It was a mixer, cleverly disguised. It was truly speed dating without the tables, right? So you've got people who went to, upper tier schools, talking to, young women, and that was pretty much it. So anyway, so my friend Gihan and I went out there, and I wore this shirt, which is a fairly regular, seemingly regular cotton shirt. We had this done up for us in Portugal, which is amazing. And it has special properties. It has magical things about it, okay? It doesn't smell. You can wear it a couple days in a row. It has an interesting anti-wrinkle treatment, similar to Brooks Brothers. And it's got a lot of great things about it, but you know what? It feels like a regular shirt. And so I walked in there with it on, and well, Gihan had one of the, but Gihan had on one of our synthetic knit dress shirts, which I'm also wearing. And so it's funny because that synthetic dress shirt, which is pictured here, you can almost tell here that it's a little bit thicker. It looks different. There's something else going on there. And so these people would look at me, and they'd look at him, and I talk about, magic shirts. And they'd go, well, what the heck are you wearing? And they'd look at Gihan, and they would believe. And so after that, that really affected our product. And every product that Ministry of Supply has made after that has been unique and interesting, has used synthetic materials. Partially just so people can understand that it's important, that it's doing something, and it's been engineered. What's amazing is that once you refine an idea, once you work on that, sharing actually happens globally now, and we all know this. But what's phenomenal, and we watch news about other startups expanding globally, but it was so phenomenal, it was like a geography lesson. Every time we went on the internet during a Kickstarter campaign that we did, we started seeing new countries pop up, right? Our far-off neighbor Canada, the UK, where we had designed some of the shirts, Germany, and even Australia. Phenomenally, the concept was so refined at that point that being on Australian radio for 5 minutes, their version of NPR called the ABC, that has caused perpetual sales in Australia. No marketing that I know of has been done to date beyond that in Australia. So there's some component of virality there. And what I really want you to understand here is that by participating in this process, by going back and forth, and truly iterating, you can get to a point where sharing really scales. This is a graph of our Kickstarter. And lo and behold, our goal, as you see, we were up there in the $400,000 mark, which is quite nice. Our goal was way, way down here at $30,000. And I want to tell a brief story about that because that was so interesting. We really wanted to scale. Who doesn't want to see this marvelous hockey stick that they teach in business schools? And the way we found that out was by testing different PR strategies. So we'd go to the active people, we'd go to the business people, we'd go to your Forbes. We'd also go to the green tech people because you don't have to dry clean it. And then we'd also go to the tech geeks because we were MIT and we were super nerdy too. And what's amazing is that we found through a very small blog that tech geeks really like this stuff. Technobob.com, this tiny blog that I had never heard of. Well, we got several sales from that very quickly. It was really cool. So we saw that resonance there. And then we said, okay, we're going to go for TechCrunch, right? We're going to go for the #1 tech blog in the world. And so we said, hey, there it is. And can anyone guess where that article was? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? Right here. Right there, that inflection point. And so we can understand, if we've gotten to the point with our product, but also our level of understanding, where we can go. So what I want to conclude with here is this idea of what can we make together. Several hundred years ago, invention was a fairly solo thing. Right? You would sit there, you would be a gentleman scientist, you would have a nice wig and some servants, you'd do some experiments, you'd have some test tube bottles and stuff like that, and you'd go play croquet or polo or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with those. But what's phenomenal about our society now, as Tesla said, is that we are all connected. We all have that ability to really leverage the knowledge of other people. And what I think is so important is that sharing allows you to think inside of someone else, to use their experiences, to create a product where I had no clue about fashion. I still don't. But I was able to understand enough about this product and this market to really flow it. And so I think some of the greatest inventions and innovations in this next 100 years will be things that are connected. And so what I want you to walk away with here are really two things. One, you have to share. Please, please share. And then two, I want you to share actively. I want you to understand what the other person is saying, and I want you to really engage in that back and forth. Because I believe that then you can create something incredible. Thank you.